kind of, trim it up a little bit, but I keep it long. Keep it long because the Prophet ﷺ had it long. Okay, and I trim it around the sides to keep it well kept, so that I'm not scaring anyone, so to speak. Now, it's important to know what the beard is. So the hair that grows on your cheeks is not beard, it's not lihya from an Islamic standpoint. The hair that grows under your neck is not lihya, because lihya is the hair that grows on the liha. The liha is the jawbone. Right? So the hair that grows on the jawbone is your lihya. Right? The hair that's on your cheeks is not. The hair that's under your neck is not. Yeah? So hopefully that clears things up a little bit. Any other burning questions?
I have one question. We covered topics about doing business, but is there like I would say we discussed about let's say drop shipping and not able not allowed to sell something if we don't
Possess it.
Possess it, yes.
Right.
Is there like specific rules, or is there like, let's say a rule? If I buy this phone for $50, and I wanna, I may be able to sell it for 1,000.
Yeah.
Or
Is there a limit to how much you can
yes.
profit?
Exactly.
I don't think there's as far as I know, there's no limit on how much you can profit, as long as it's reasonable. And the reasonability is going to refer to the norms.
To what?
To the norms and how,
Like market?
yeah, what the market looks like. Right? Now, if the item is needed, right, it's, I don't know, say for example, it's milk or eggs, right? And you have access to a warehouse of eggs, right? That's your thing. You're an egg man. And it's highly expensive to the point that people are unable to get eggs. The price is so high. Right? It becomes impermissible for you to sell at that price because you're preventing people from benefiting from what their daily needs. So you need to discount, sell them at a discount. Why? So that people can benefit. And at the same time, it's no harm to you because you're getting it at such a cheap price. So at the end of the day, it's going to go back to the needs of people.
Okay.
Any burning questions? Any cooling questions? Right. That's all done.
What about the life insurance?
Life insurance. I don't know. ولا أدري. You can refer to AMJA about that. I think they've allowed some forms of life insurance because of the high costs of burial and afterlife issues, right? Like how to take care of the person's possessions and everything, and how it's such a burden on the family. So if they don't have life insurance, it would cause difficulty. And the lack of community, I guess, cooperation kind of does not give them a cushion. So there's an allowance of certain types of life insurance, but for details, you have to, I need to do more research, I don't know. Okay. So we talked about marriage and rights of husbands and wives and all of that good stuff. It's befitting that we talk about separation because, as we said, marriage is a contract and every contract can be breached. If a contract is breached, any of the parties in the contract can ask out. It is not one-sided, whereas only the husband can get out of a marriage relationship. Either of them can do it. There is a difference, however, between how a man goes about annulling the marriage or separation, and how the woman goes about separation. And again, this is because of the man being the responsible party in the relationship, right? He's the CEO. She's the GM, general manager. Okay? They both have authority. However, one has more authority than the other. Excuse me. Assalamu alaikum, brother. We're missing you in class, my friend. Yes. Yes. Today's the last day. Okay. Khair, inshallah, no problem. So maybe we'll talk later. I responded to your messages, but you didn't. I don't think you received them. Okay. Assalamu alaikum. Excuse me, for that I had called the brother and he didn't answer, so he called me back, so I thought answer the call. Alright, so where were we? Separation. So it can be initiated by either the husband or wife. However, the husband, because of his authority in the marriage, because he's spending money, because he's the one that's investing. And of course the wife does invest as well, but the husband's investment is tangible. He can unilaterally end the marriage. However, if he unilaterally ends the marriage, there's a process. Right? It's not like we are separating or I'm divorcing you and then that's it. Right? There's a process. So starting with how a woman can annul the marriage or get out of the marriage, there's a concept that is called khula'. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it. Khula', the Arabic linguistic meaning is to take something off, remove clothing, right? Remove something from your body, right? And what it is in Islamic terms is it's a separation between husband and wife. It's a separation between husband and wife for a price that is paid by the wife. And there are certain words that are used for this to happen. So it's a separation. This separation is for a price. This price is paid by the wife. Okay? And there are certain verbs or words that are used in order for this separation to happen. Clear? Any questions so far?
Is it a form of divorce?
It's a form of separation, divorce, yes.
Coming from the wife, no?
The wife initiates it, yes.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
The wife is the one who initiates it. But it's a form of separation. This separation is paid for, it's a price. There's a price for this separation. And this price is paid by the wife. And there are certain words that are used for this separation to happen.
Is it like turn it back? Like,
I'm sorry, what?
Like when you do talaq, first talaq, you can get back.
So khula' is not counted as talaq. It's not counted as talaq. It's not counted as a divorce. So hypothetically, a woman does a khula', okay? Separation happens. 2 years later, the man wants to marry her again, right? He can marry her again, right? There needs to be a new mahar, everything new, brand new. They get married, and then he divorces her. That would be considered the first divorce. Okay, so khulu' does not count as a divorce. I'm sorry, what?
It's عجيب يعني سبحان الله.
Why?
Because when you get married again, you have to pay mahar.
Yes.
It's kind of new marriage.
Well, you.
Why
she-
it's not considered divorce?
It's a separation. So I don't like using English terms,
Oh, I see.
right? Because they have a certain connotation. The Arabic term, because we're using shara, okay? So talaq is different from khula, okay? Which, at the end of the day, they're the same thing, functionally. They're both separation. But talaq is a unilateral decision that is made by the husband, and he ends it. Okay, that's talaq. Khulu', however, is a communal process. Okay, so a woman is unhappy for one reason or another, and she's willing to pay to get out of this situation. So if she pays, she gets out of the situation. It's a communal obligation. So it's done through the community, right? The person in charge, or her wali, or kada, because men have strength, they have power, right? And so that he does not exercise his power over her, there are others that intervene so that this marriage can be, or this separation can happen. All right? So with divorce, now I'm kind of going back and forth so that you guys can really understand the dynamics. So with talaq, or with marriage to start out with, we talked about mahar yesterday. And the mahar is paid by the husband. So when he pays this mahar, he has a certain authority because he paid the mahar. Okay? And that authority is connected to divorce, separation. It's connected to talaq. So now because he gave something tangible, right? He has the right to end it. So he's invested in this person. This is an investment. And the fact that he's ending it, at his own loss. Right? Because she's owed that mahar, not especially, but in the event the marriage was consummated. Right? So if the marriage is consummated, this woman, she's owed all of the money that is for the mahar. So he's losing on his investment. So it must have been something that was really bad, right? That he decided to end it, right? Everything that he went through to, get to know her, to get to know her family, to do all the changes, to do the urs, the walima, to, invite everybody, and all of that, right? He has to think about everything that he invested for him to end, right? So the fact that he's ending it, he has the authority to do that because of the sacrifice that he made, the tangible sacrifice that he made. Okay? The woman, on the other hand, she does not have the authority to end it because in a traditional sense, she's only moving from one home to another. Right? She's bringing her belongings that she can take back to her old home, really. All right, she's not really putting any money up front. So for her to end it, there's not really much. There are things at stake for her, but they're not financial, they're not tangible. Okay? So when she is unhappy with the marriage, she can get out. And one of those ways that she can get out is by paying. Okay? Now, how much she pays is going to depend on the agreement, right? Because the husband has to agree to let her go based on how much she's paying. Some scholars say it can be an amount greater than the mahar she received. Right? Some scholars say it can be greater than the amount in mahar. So, for example, she receives $10,000 in mahar, right? The husband can ask for 15, for example. If she gets paid 15,000, the husband asks for 20. However, there's a form of harm in that, because she's being asked to give up more than she received, which is more than the investment that he invested. And the hadith where the Prophet ﷺ said to the wife of Thabit ibn Qais, when she wanted out of the marriage, and he asked her why. She said that I don't want to be neglectful. I don't want to be to perform kufr after Islam, after Iman. And kufr here is referring to not disbelief, but rather ungratefulness, meaning not giving him his rights as a wife. Right? I don't want that on me. The Prophet ﷺ asked her, "Ataruddina alayhi hadiqata?" Would you give him back his farm, his date farm? Would you give him back the garden that he gave you for mahar? She said yes. The Prophet ﷺ said, "Ruddi alayhi hadiqata wa talliqha tatliqa." He said to her, give him back his garden, and you, Thabit, divorce her. Okay? So this indicates that the exchange, or the price that she gives back, or that she gives for her freedom from this marriage, should not be any more than what she got. What she got or less. Right? Any questions?
So, what is stopping the husband from just setting an unrealistic price?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It can be more than.
But you said, like, some scholars have said it could be more.
So those who say it could be more, they also say that if it's something that is unrealistic and he's being troublesome, he's being a problem, then she would just give him a reasonable amount and she'd be released. Yes.
So is the amount determined once the khula happens, or is it like during the nikah, or when it's like the amount?
The amount for what?
The khula, like she has paid.
That's determined when she asks for it.
Okay.
She makes that request. A couple of disclaimers, because I don't want there to be a misunderstanding as to how Islam works, or how the Islamic law on divorce works. The first disclaimer is when a woman is being abused, okay, and she's trying to get a khula, to get out of the marriage, our first course of action should not be to annul the marriage, right? Because that's a process. Our first course of action should be to make sure she's safe, right? That should be number one. The reason that should be number one is because harm needs to be prevented. And that's one of the overall maxims of our deen, okay? Someone is being harmed, we should stop that harm from happening. Even if it's from her husband, even if she's living in her house. Living in his house, especially if she's living in his house. So harm needs to be prevented. She needs to be safe. Okay, it's the first disclaimer. Second disclaimer is just because a woman is saying she wants to divorce, right, does not mean we jump up and down and make sure it happens right away. Okay. We acknowledge her desire to want out of a marriage, and we also make sure she's safe, and we allow the process to take its course. Okay. So part of that process is, of course, the people who are in charge. So if you're in a position where people look up to you for consultation, or you're put in a position where you have authority in the community to actually make these types of decisions, to bring people together or to make people separate, then you have to make sure you get all the information. Okay? If getting all the information is going to take time, you also want to make sure that the sister is safe. Right? She's in a comfortable place, she's okay emotionally, she's okay physically, and she's able to live comfortably. Right? Yeah.
So, when we were discussing the woman's cycle, you said it's haram for a man to divorce his wife. Can a woman,
Even if it's during the cycle, she can annul the marriage, yes. The reason why it's haram for him to divorce her while she's in her cycle is because it's harmful for her. Okay? But if she's the one that wants out of the marriage, then it must be harmful for her to be in the marriage during her cycle. Right? So khula' is permissible if there's disagreement to the point that the woman feels like she cannot live with this man anymore. And evidence that she can't live with this man anymore is that she's giving him back his mahr. And she's willing to pay it back. Okay? Not, are you willing to pay it back? She's like, maybe I'll give him half. Maybe not. Let me think about it. Something like that. She's not really serious. And of course, the woman has to be in her right mind. Okay? And that's, of course, determined by professionals. If the khula' does happen, then the husband has no more authority over his wife. Right? She's no longer his wife. Of course, like we said, with the khula' there's no talaq. So talaq is not part of khula'. Okay? So if khula' happens, it does not count as a divorce. And we also said that khula' can happen during her menstrual period. That's fine. It is also impermissible for a man to put pressure on his wife. So for example, a man is unhappy with his wife. He paid like, I don't know, 20,000 for mahr, and like an extra 10,000 for the whole walima and everything, right? So he's like 30,000 in debt, or he's 30,000 deep. And then come to realize, she's not the right one for me. Okay? So, because he's so deep, like he invested so much money, he doesn't want to divorce her. He wants to get that money back, or at least some of it. So what a person would do, and this happens, is he would just stop being nice to her, right? Put pressure on her so that she can ask out of the marriage, right? So not answer her calls, for example, not bring any food home, for example, or bring food, but it's like stuff that she doesn't like, for example, or doesn't pay the light bill, right? Stuff like that, to put pressure on her so that she can want out of the marriage, so that he can get his money back, or at least some of it. It's haram to do that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala يقول ولا تعضلوهن لتذهبوا ببعض ما آتيتموهن إلا أن يأتين بفاحشة مبينة. Do not cause them harm. Do not put pressure on them so that you can take back some of the money that you gave to them. Unless they do fahisha mubayyina. They do some sort of apparent sin that's open. And in that case, then yeah, force her to get out of it. Because she's the one that's being harmful, not you. Any questions so far? Yeah, it's over.
Any specific reason for women asking for khala?
There are, but generally, because Imra'at Thabit ibn Qais, she just said, I don't like him. She didn't like him. That was all there is. And she was serious that she was willing to give back his garden. So, you don't like him, you don't like him.
What's about timeline? Yeah, like
No
specific
time.
timeline.
No time.
so is also the reverse sort of true? Like if a woman wants to get out
Yeah, that's haram, of course. It's haram. If she wants out of the marriage, then she should get out of the marriage. You know, let's not play games. If you're going to play games, you're playing games with Allah's deen. You don't want to do that.
So, another question, for the khula, women should have like iddah,
So the iddah is one menstrual cycle for istibra al-rahim, right? To make sure she's not pregnant. Because it's not his. So the iddah in talaq is 3 menstrual cycles, and that's for the right of the husband because he's the one that's paying, right? He's the one that made the sacrifice. But in khula, she's the one that's paying now, right? So there's only 1 menstrual cycle for the iddah, just to make sure she's not pregnant. It's very linear. You guys notice that, right? There's logic. Right? It's not just man is man, woman is woman. You gotta listen, gotta know. There's logic to it. Right. Any questions?
About khula and talaq.
I'm sorry, what?
About khula and
About khula.
talaq or both?
So personally, I have had cases where a woman would request khula. In our area, as far as I know, the imams usually tell the wife to go through the legal process first. Okay? Especially if they're married in the courts. Most people are married in the courts. So go through the legal process first. Finish that first. Because that's the law of the land, that's what can be enforced. After she's done with that, then we do the shara khula. But personally, I have not performed, as I said on that. It hasn't gotten that far with me. Alright, so I have like certain barriers that I put up. I mean, of course, the first thing I try to make sure of is that the woman is safe. Right? That she's not afraid of being, hurt or harmed or anything like that. She's safe. And then, I try to, ask questions, make things happen so that the marriage continues. And in most cases, they're okay. They don't want.
I have one question. What's about in the case, well, one of them, I ask, when one of them is not Muslim?
So the wife is not Muslim.
Yes, let's say.
Because if the husband is not Muslim, then it's not a marriage,
That's true.
right?
Yeah.
So one of the shurut,
Yeah.
the requirements of marriage, is that if it's the husband needs to be Muslim. Okay, so if the wife is not Muslim, then what's the question?
So the question is, let's say, it's a specific case.
Sorry, what?
It's a specific case. We'll go through. I'll have a couple of questions later on.
Hey, inshallah.
I heard that converts are allowed to stay with their spouses if they converted while married, like a female convert. Like she's her husband's not Muslim. She converted to Islam. They're still allowed to be married.
If he converts.
Oh, if he converts.
If he doesn't convert, then that marriage is not a marriage anymore.
We can talk about it later. I'll show you. I seen like a hadith.
I know what you're talking about, but the husband needs to he needs to accept Islam. Before he accepts Islam, they can't do what husband and wife do. That doesn't mean she has to leave his house. That doesn't mean that she has to liquidate all of the assets that are between them. Right? It doesn't mean any of that. Okay? What it means is, things that husband and wife do is no longer permissible until he accepts Islam. Now, if it happens, then it happens. Right? It doesn't make her not a Muslim. Does not take her outside of Islam if she does with her previous husband and wife do, because it's her husband. It doesn't take her outside of Islam. But technically it's a sin.
So it can be a reason for divorce.
Khula or divorce, I'm laughing because
Yeah, that's fine.
I know I'm laughing because it's not a marriage anymore.
Yeah, yeah, true.
So there's no need for separation because
Yeah, there is no.
the mere fact that she accepted Islam annuls the marriage. And this is not to discourage women who are not Muslim from accepting Islam. There's a solution for it, right? There's always a solution. But the fact that she accepts Islam means that the marriage is no longer. Now, if he accepts Islam, then that marriage is allowed to continue. If he accepts Islam.
Is that automatic?
Sorry, what?
There's no man.
The marriage is kept as is. It's allowed to stay. طيب. Talaq, which is different from khula. Right? So talaq is another form of separation. Talaq is a process. There's talaq that is permissible, and there's talaq that is impermissible. The permissible talaq happens, and the impermissible talaq also happens with sin. So a person who performs an impermissible talaq has disobeyed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Talaq, or divorce, or annulment of marriage, or separation that is unilaterally done by a husband, it needs to be done by someone who is sane, right? Someone who is of age, right? Someone who is not drunk, right? Someone who is of sound mind at the time. So they talk about a person who is angry, and that divorce from an angry person does not count. But the question is, to what extent is that anger? Right? So for example, a person got into an argument with his wife. She wants to make chicken, and he wants, ribs for dinner, right? So she remembers a time when she was at his parents' house, and his mom wanted her to make ribs, and she was sick. So she says, "You're just trying to make me upset because you know how your mom treated me that day when I was not feeling well, and she made me make those ribs." And he's like, "You're always bringing up old stuff because you were looking for problems." All right? And she's like, "You're the one that's looking for problems because you keep reminding me of the times when I was not feeling well." And they're back and forth. And this is how arguments happen, by the way. This is exactly how it happens. Something that is like meaningless, but because there are things that have been building up, the build-up comes in, creeps in. So he gets angry, right? And he's like, "I divorce you." He was angry, right? Yes? And he leaves the house. So, does this divorce happen or does it not happen? Okay, because we said that when a person is angry, the divorce does not happen. Yeah? So the Prophet ﷺ, because the Prophet ﷺ said, "La talaqa fi ighlaq." La talaq fi ighlaq. And ighlaq is a term for anger. But it's not just any anger. The Prophet ﷺ didn't say, "La talaqa fi ghadab." He said, "La talaqa fi ighlaq." So ighlaq is an extreme anger to the point that You black out. You forget what happened. You don't even know what happened. All right? You're not in control of your words. Okay? Some people, they get angry and they start hitting, but they're in control of what they're doing. They know what they're doing. They're aware. Okay? Others, they get so angry that they black out. Everything that they're doing is unconscious. Okay? So when you get to that point of anger that you're unconscious and you pronounce talaq, that divorce does not count. One of the scholars of Mecca was asked by a person that I did my divorce when I was angry. Right? Does it count? So the Sheikh asked him, how angry were you? He said, I was like really. He said, were you able to determine the difference between night and day? So do you know what time of day it was? Was it daytime or nighttime? And he told him like what time of day it was. He said the divorce happened. Right? Divorce counted. Because he was conscious. He was aware of what he was saying and what he was doing. So the point that I'm making here is that don't say divorce. Stay away from it. Right? It's the last and final resort. Don't say, oh, I was angry. Oh, I was tired. Oh, I was this. No. You don't say it. Because it happens. There are consequences. I mean, of course, talaq is part of our religion. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala stipulates how we should do talaq. Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam also directed his sahaba as to how to perform talaq. Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam also divorced Hafsa radiyallahu anha, and he took her back thereafter. So talaq is part of our deen. Although it's makruh, it's disliked, but it's part of our deen. Talaq is in the hands of the husband, not in the hands of the wife, for the reasons we stated previously. At times, talaq may become mandatory if the situation is dire. An example of that is a person's wife is sleeping around. Right? She's hanging out with other men. At this time, talaq becomes mandatory. Right? Because it's a matter of honor, it's a matter of name, right? You don't want to deal with that. Wording for talaq. Talaq can either be clear or it can be insinuated. Either clear or insinuated. The clear talaq occurs even if you didn't mean it, even if you were joking. Okay? So a clear talaq would be a how would you say, a past tense verb, right? For example, I divorced you. Okay? Or it can be a present continuous, I am divorcing you. Or it can be, I guess, a gerund, you are divorced. You are being divorced. Right? This is all in English. The Arabic would be anti taliq. طلقتك. Or anti mutallaqa. You are a divorced woman. These are clear statements. And they happen even if you didn't mean it. Right? If you're joking with your wife, you're chilling with her, and you're like, okay, let me try something. Sister, anti taliq. You don't joke around with that kind of stuff. Or it can be insinuated. Alright? Right? Using a term that could mean divorce. Okay? So for example, we are separating. Right? Go back home. Right? We're no longer married. Okay? So it depends on the wording that you use. If other indicators say that you meant talaq, you meant divorce, even if you deny it, divorce is counted. However, if there are terms that could mean other things, then it's going to depend on your intention. So if a person says to his wife, we're separating, and what he meant was that he was traveling and he's going to come back, then divorce doesn't happen. Okay? But if he meant divorce, and then later on he said, no, I didn't mean divorce, divorce had actually happened between him and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that person knows. So it will be counted as one divorce. Alright? Any questions? Talaq was sunnah, the permissible way of doing talaq. It pertains to how many times you pronounce talaq, and it pertains to at which time you pronounce talaq. As for how many times you pronounce talaq, the sunnah way, the permissible way, is to say talaq once. Right? Not 3, not 2. Right? Anti talaq, for example. I am divorcing you. You are divorced. 1. And that time, that once, needs to be during her pure period, right? In which there was no intercourse. For example, she was on her menses, then she cleared up from her menses, and then he divorces her before any intercourse. The reason for that is because in many cases, when a woman is on her menses, her hormones are up and down. And when her hormones are up and down, she's unpleasant, right? She's taking her anger, because she's in pain a lot of times, she's taking her anger out on the closest person in the room, which a lot of times is you, right? But as the period goes away and it ends, right? Towards the end, she goes back to her normal self. And because she's going back to her normal self, she gets back to normal. You guys haven't, for a while, and the husband is ready to either, and then she's clean, and then they, have intercourse. So, if a person is serious about divorce, then he's willing to refrain from that. Right? He's willing to refrain from that if he's serious about divorce. So he refrains from it, he waits until she's clean, and then he pronounces that divorce. That indicates seriousness. Okay. So the sunnah talaq is permissible and it happens. Okay? Any questions about that? The permissible or sunnah talaq? As for the impermissible or bid'i talaq, innovated form of talaq, that is when a person either he pronounces more than one talaq in one setting. So for example, and this happens a lot, he says to his wife, anti talaq, anti talaq, anti talaq, or talaq, 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 3 times. He's just so upset, he doesn't want to see her face anymore, he doesn't want to hear her voice anymore, he doesn't even want to hear about her anymore, right? He doesn't want to have anything to do with her at that point in time. So he says, talaq, talaq, talaq. 1, 2, 3. Okay. So of course there's a difference of opinion among scholars whether or not it happens. Like in many of the Sahaba, like Umar radiallahu anhu and others, they counted it as 3. Right? It's haram, it's disobedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but it's counted as 3. The only way he can get back together with her is if she marries again, and that marriage is consummated, and she is divorced. That's the first form of bid'i talaq. Right? To perform the talaq when, yeah, right, 3 times. The second form of bid'i talaq is to perform talaq while she's on her menses. Third form is to perform talaq while she is on a clean period within which there was intercourse. Of course, this bid'i talaq is haram, so disobedience, it's a major sin. But it does happen. It does count as a talaq. Right? If it's one during a period or during a. And the evidence for that is when Abdullah bin Umar radiallahu anhuma divorced his wife while she was on her menses. The Prophet ﷺ ordered him, to take her back. The fact that he ordered him to take her back indicates that it was an actual talaq. Right? Otherwise, he would have said, order him to keep her. Mush. Any questions about that? Yeah.
If the woman is on like menopause, is there a certain time he has to wait, or like for it to be considered a clean period without having intercourse, or is it khalas because there's no menstrual cycle, doesn't matter?
I haven't thought about that. I don't know. I haven't read anything about that.
Did people not live that long back then?
Sorry, what?
Like, sorry, like, did people not live that long back then, or is there actually?
Of course. Prophet ﷺ died at 63. Menopause is usually after 50. Yeah.
Question is,
I'm sorry, what?
I'm thinking. So, how to phrase the question? So actually, let's say someone is, let's say, couple, talaq. Once the man is saying it, then they need to wait 3 months, basically, right?
Iddah?
Yes.
So what's the question?
My question is, are they supposed to stay living together, or are they supposed to?
They live together.
They have to. Okay. Well, okay.
Unless there's fear of harm.
Okay.
Otherwise, they stay together.
And like they share
Same.
the same.
Same.
Same. Okay.
Right? They don't have to sleep in the same bed,
Yeah. Okay.
but they share the same home. Right? She can, look pretty and,
Yeah.
do her hair and get lipstick done, and she can,
Live the life. That's,
especially if she wants him to take her back.
yeah. That's. Okay.
لا تدري لعل الله يحدث بعد ذلك أمرا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala يقول, you don't know, maybe Allah Azza wa Jal will cause an affair to happen thereafter. An affair meaning between husband and wife. A good affair. Not an affair that's understood in the West. طيب, الرجعة. How a person, when he divorces his wife a first or second time, how he can take her back. Okay? So, الرجعة is part of our deen. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in the Quran, فأمسكوهن بمعروف أو سرحوهن بمعروف. Hold them or bring them back or let them go. Right? So you divorce, you decide to take her back, take her back. لكن بالمعروف, within reasonability. Prophet ﷺ said, مُرْهُ فَلْيُرَاجِعْهَا. Tell Ibn Umar to, take her back. And of course, the wisdom is to give you a chance to kind of like rethink your decision to divorce your wife. Because, things happen, people get upset, right? But there are avenues and ways of reconciliation. Taking your wife back is permissible within the first or second divorce. The marriage has to also be consummated. So, for example, if the person gets married and there's no, they're not together, like alone, and then he decides to divorce her, then there's no iddah, right? There's no waiting period, and he cannot take her back. It can be khulu', because in khulu' she's paying for her freedom of this marriage, so he can't take her back. It has to be a correct nikah. So if it was an incorrect nikah, then of course he can't take her back. And taking her back needs to be within the iddah, the waiting period. And the waiting period is 3 menstrual cycles. And taking her back needs to be done at that moment. It can't be, if something happens, then I'll take you back. That doesn't count. Okay? How does a person take his wife back? Either he tells her, I'm taking you back. We're remarrying. We're staying together. Right? Or they have intercourse with the intention of taking her back. Right? I think that's clear, right? No need for examples. Right? Sure. Because technically, when a woman is in her waiting period, she's still married. But the marriage is not a full marriage.
Pending.
It's pending. Yeah, jazakallah khair. Pending. Divorce pending. And it's 3 menstrual periods, which is usually three months. And 3 months is plenty of time to take. Okay. She's not to be put out of her home. Right? She's not to leave. Unless there's a need. Right? She needs to go shopping for the daily things or whatnot, then she can leave. She needs to, visit her parents for something that is she can. Otherwise, she should stay home. Right? She should not leave, and he should be there. So it's forcing them to be in the same space and to have to interact with each other, and still be upset with each other, to the point that he doesn't take her back. Right? So it's giving him a lot of time to think about it, because one of the goals of our Islamic tradition is that we want to bring people together. We want to keep the family together as much as possible. Okay? So what that does is it gives a chance for them to work things out. The woman does not have to agree to be taken back. Right? So in marriage, she has to agree to the marriage. But being taken back after a divorce, she does not have to agree. Now, if she's not okay with the marriage, then there's a way for her to get out. Right? She can pay money. The time for taking her back is only the time of her waiting period. Outside of that, it's done. He can't take her back. All right. In the event a woman wants out of a marriage where her husband is not giving her her basic rights. For example, he doesn't buy food. He doesn't pay the rent. Right? She has clothes that she's been wearing for like 10 years and he never bought her any clothes. And her clothes are ripping, coming apart. Right? He declines to have intercourse with her. These are basic rights. Okay? Or he does not make salah. Or he's an alcoholic. Or he's abusive, he hits her. Right? These are all causes for annulment, which is a form of khulu'. However, she's not compelled to give him anything. She can ask out without the need for any type of compensation. Okay? Any questions on that? Okay.
So in this case, because there's like a genuine.
I'm sorry, what?
Because there's like a genuine reason, she doesn't need to pay.
He's not giving her her basic rights. Right? The basic rights that she has as a woman, as a wife, she's not receiving. Right? But in khul', he may be doing everything for her. Right? But she just doesn't like him. Or it's not enough for her. Right? So he gives her the basics, but she wants to be treated like a princess. And that's just not what he does. Right? So, and she's willing to, give up whatever to get out of it. So she gets out of it, she gets out of it. I do want to talk about I guess a little bit more about iddah. Okay. All right. So there's the iddah of I guess 3 types of iddah because of separation. Separation is either due to talaq or khul' or being widowed. Okay? And this iddah is either by a woman, or this woman who's being divorced, either she's pregnant or not. This woman who's being widowed, either she's pregnant or not pregnant. So if a woman is pregnant when she is divorced, or she is widowed, or she has a khul', then her iddah ends when she gives birth. Even if it's a couple nights. Even if it's the same day. So a man divorces his wife, the next day she gives birth. Her iddah is done. Finished. Okay? A woman is married and she's pregnant and her husband dies. Ahlan Sheikh Ali. Marhaba. MashaAllah. Zaratna al-baraka.
Allah.
حياك الله. Where were we? Yeah. Husband dies, she's widowed, she gives birth the next day, khalas. Her iddah is finished. Yes. Someone should give the adhan. Inshallah. We need a volunteer.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله
Okay. So we said pregnancy, giving birth ends the iddah. That's clear, right? And a woman who was married without that marriage being consummated, then there's no iddah. We talked about the woman having to stay home, and then there having to have, interactions between the husband and wife until the iddah is over. I don't want to repeat myself too much. And she can leave the house when there's a need. So say for example she has a job, right? She can go to work, but she comes back. She's not like hanging out with her friends and going out, but she comes back home until the iddah is finished. A woman who is widowed, her iddah, if she's pregnant, is giving birth. If she's not pregnant, then it is what? 4 months and 10 days. 4 months and 10 days. And a woman who's widowed, in addition to staying home, unless needed to leave, she's not allowed to put on any beautification. So like makeup and jewelry and fancy clothes and all of that. Even putting on like unnecessary perfume, she doesn't do any of that. Right, any questions so far? I'm trying to rush through these things. Yeah.
So the purpose of all those things, is it just they need to be waiting and they care for a
Right,
like
it's
that?
just to honor her husband, her late husband. Just to honor her late husband, that's all. Right. As for lactating, which is breastfeeding, right? And what effect it has, and when does it have an effect? So it has an effect if a child within the first 2 years of birth. And the first 2 years is Hijri, not Miladi, not Gregorian. So if a child within the first 2 years of childbirth drinks from a woman who's not his mother, right? And it has to be 5 filling drinks. Some scholars say just 1 is enough. But according to the hadith of Aisha radiallahu anha, that it was a verse in the Quran that was abrogated. The Prophet, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, "Khamsu rada'atin mushbi'atin yuharrimin." So 5 filling drinks cause the tahrim, which makes a person mahram for another. So the woman who breastfed him becomes his mother. Her husband is his father. Her children are his siblings. Her mother is his grandmother. Her husband's father is his grandfather, like that. Like Prophet ﷺ said, "الرضاعة تحرم ما تحرم الولادة." Breastfeeding makes haram what? Giving birth makes haram. Any questions? And breastfeeding is sufficient for one woman to say that I breastfed you. Right? It doesn't have to be 2 people. Right? So Hamza is about to marry a sister that he likes, right? And her mother was like, "Boy, when you was a baby, I breastfed you." If she's reliable, if she's a reliable person, not somebody who makes things up, Malish Hamza. You gotta find somebody else. Right? One last thing, inshallah ta'ala, and we will, I guess, conclude this course. And I think we can talk about it after the salah, inshallah ta'ala, is what has to do with custody, child custody. And I'll be very brief, inshallah ta'ala, and just give you the crux of the matter. And if you want to do any further research, you are free to do so. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك